Good afternoon, everyone. As Ashley said, my name is Mike Kaluri. I'm a solutions architect here at Caseware, and we just wanted to give you a quick overview of how you could present and how you could prevent P-card abuse and misuse, because you really do have the ability to take control of the program as you're progressing through. What we've been noticing is that there is a huge rise in P-card spend. Many different corporations are looking to expand their P-card program, whether it's internally, whether they're merging with other companies, or they're looking to add additional cards. As you can see here, it's projected of the increase of 62%. So there is a massive amount of transactions that are starting to go through, and it's really becoming very difficult for these small purchase card teams to be able to consistently monitor and verify and validate all of the transactions. So as you know, currently one of the things that are happening is that sampling is really becoming unreliable. You want to have the ability to actually review 100% of your transactions at all times. We've been noticing that audit sample is a thing of the past. Why is that? Because when looking at a simple sample, you can see that there is consistent misuse that continues to be undetected. So companies that don't effectively manage their purchase card program truly do risk the loss of assets, or even worse, potential reputational risk. There's also having the ability of having the inability to continue to monitor all of the transactions and ensuring that everyone's following rules as they should. Let's take a look at our CTO of Blue Shield, who was actually fired after spending over $100,000 on a celebrity girlfriend. I'm sure you guys have heard of this in the news. You know, he was using his card for trips and vacations. Over $1,382 ended up being purchased actually at a nightclub. And 3/4 of his spending through the purchase card had no obvious business purpose. Legitimate expenses were extremely lavishing as well. So what we want you to be aware is, with a continuous monitor, you have the ability to protect your company's resources and reputation. And when looking at a monitoring system, you also have to better understand that you have the ability to actually leverage multiple different scenarios or data sources at the same time. So an example here, when looking at transactions, John uses his P-card to purchase an MP3 player. You can see that it's based off of the high-risk merchant category codes. But by monitoring the transactions by MCC number, the solution does actually detect that John made a high-risk purchase. Now you can actually create these rules within your card system, but it's continuous reports with large amount of data that you start to have to siphon through. When using automated analytics, what we'll do is start to reduce those false positives and bring the important exceptions up to the surface. The meat, what you really need to start to take a look at. You also have the ability to start to do keyword search. I'm sure you guys can try to do this sometimes in Excel, but it can be really complex. But as you can see here, a variety of non-compliant purchases based off of jewelry, electronics, tobacco, alcohol, you know, diaper, or even someone telling you in the comments, by accident, it was my purchase, I used it by mistake, so on and so forth. These are some really good words that you can use to start to search within the different areas, whether it's item description or whether it's a comment. When I say item description, it's because I start to relate to level 3 data. Now, most of your bank transactions, purchase card transactions, T&E transactions actually have level 3 data. But many companies or organizations aren't aware that they can actually leverage that data. So it's always good to follow up with your provider to validate or verify if they're providing that level 3 data. If not, I would suggest you ensure that you ask them to provide you with that level 3 data, because it will help increase the amount of detail that you're seeing within the transactions. It'll really help start to bring out some low-hanging fruit. Here's a quick example as well of what we can do when looking at working with Concur. Again, this is an overview, an architectural overview of leveraging multiple different sources of data to help your analytics. A very simple area to start to pull in data from when using Concur is leveraging human resource data. Why do we want to leverage human resource data? A great example is the purchase card system as well as the human resource data don't communicate. If someone ends up going on short-term disability, on leave, maternity leave, ends up getting fired or retired, there's no automated way to validate and verify that that purchase card was actually turned off. So you could continue to have expenses running through, yet the person isn't even with your company anymore. So how do we end up bringing those exceptions to light is by following the architecture here. We use the different data sources, the Concur data through an API that we connect directly, the human resources, which we also have the ability to pull directly into our data analytic engine. We cleanse and ensure to standardize the data. We then put it through our analytic repository, and as it's progressing through the process, we start to output alerts. Now these alerts are output through email, dashboard, or SMS notifications. These are three different types of notifications that can be available for any type of exceptions that are occurring. And once you have these exceptions, you also want to ensure, one, are they going to the appropriate people at the right time? Two, when looking at the remediation process, what is the actual particular remediation required for each potential scenario? There is a multitude of different risks, scenarios, and analytics that can be put in place, but to ensuring that that remediation process is put in an automated form is crucial and important. We all know that follow-up and remediation can be very, very manual through Excel spreadsheets and so on. So what we want to show you right now is a quick demonstration of a real-world example of what this would look like. What would the alerts end up looking like once it's gone through this process and it gets into the alerts? How does this look like? What is the monitoring framework? All right. So what we have here is I'm currently logged in as a data analyst. Of course, as the super user that I'm logged in as, you can see I have a multitude of different risks output here for our P-card solution. And this is just a small section of analytics that we actually do for our solution. Our solution includes a large number of analytics, but we wanted to bring some big hitters here for you to see. So you can see we have some department outliers usage. Certain departments are using cards for certain items, and then all of a sudden I'm using a lab equipment consistently, and now all of a sudden it's an electronics store. There's duplicate transactions verification as well, but we can also do cross-correlation on duplicate transactions with accounts payables. So I'm trying to validate the accounts payable transactions against the P-card transactions and identify potential duplicates. We have, of course, the thresholds, cardholder thresholds, daily and transaction thresholds. And then you're looking for expenses that are claimed as out-of-pocket. And this is not just in general identifying out-of-pocket claims. This is looking for trends. When looking at historical information the past year or 2 years, and you start to create an employee or card profile on who is consistently using it out-of-pocket. What are they using it for? Why do they keep using out-of-pocket when they know they have a corporate card? Is it a particular type of purchase that's consistently done, or are they taking advantage of the system? Do I need to update my policy to allow a certain merchant category code to be used because they continue to do out-of-pocket? High-risk personal purchases, which is a huge endeavor, and of course identify employees claiming items throughout the last 3 months. What I mean by that, I go to a hotel, I end up traveling, I have a receipt, so on and so forth in March. Come June, I never actually went to the hotel, but I claim it again. So duplicate claims on items throughout a certain period of time. Insufficient comments is a great thing as well, keeping an eye on what are the number of characters. If there are standard expectations and requirements within comments, let's validate it. Manager review process, which is something huge that we'll touch on as well. So let's go in and take a look at a particular transaction. For example here, a high-risk personal purchases. I have a large number of different transactions that are actually routed to me. And you can see that the first thing I notice is a state. Where does the state actually come from? The state is derived from a customized workflow based on how your company or organization remediates the particular issues. All of this is fully customizable. We put together here something very simplistic, very simple, assigned under investigation, escalated, and final review. But again, it's fully customizable and can be adapted to your needs at any point in time. When looking at all of the exceptions in a grid view, you also have the ability to filter out whether it's by amount, vendor, by name, so on and so forth. And right now, there's a particular employee that I'm really interested in. I can see Ms. Baker here has a multitude of transactions that tend to fall on the radar, whether it's Clear Skin Spa, going to Costco, so on and so forth. So let's take a look and start investigating the item. One of the first things I'd like to do as well is follow the history. So in front of me, I have all of the details that I'm going to require to do this actual investigation. I want to have the ability to understand what was purchased, why was it purchased, what's the business reason, is there any additional outside source information that can help me do my investigation? Was there a receipt? Was it required? Who signed off on it? Was it a manager? Who, what, when, where, and how? On the right side, I have the history of information that was performed, if anyone else actually looked at this item and added additional comments or information. So that I know, okay, it's been currently reassigned. I now have the ability to assign it to myself if I wish, which I can do so directly. Here the item is the transaction detail information for Clear Skin Spa. I can see that it was actually, I made a purchase at Clear Skin Spa, which is flagged by the merchant category group. I notice that I have the employee ID, the group that was held in, as well as the code. What I also have is additional detailed information that was provided, meaning level 2 transaction data. When I look at line item information, I can see that she received a body massage for this particular item, which really isn't within our policies. When I start looking at cardholder manager details, I see that this person is actually part of the marketing sector, and she was able to sign off on one of her own transactions, and who is her manager. Here we go. So let's keep going. When looking at the personal purchase information in level 3 details, I notice that there's additional transactions that have occurred within the same time frame. So now I'm getting a holistic view of all of the potential transactions that are considered an issue or breach of policy, potential misuse or abuse. I can see that she now not only got a body massage, but she ended up going to the Hilton Hotel and purchased a large number of items, an Apple iPad, and jewelry at Costco as well. So now this is of concern to me. My first reaction is, how come this wasn't caught? Why was this approved through and through? When looking here, we have a manager review process. What does that mean? We know that there is a massive amount of onus that's put on our managers these days. Managers are always have so much responsibility to uphold the policies and procedures in place that their employees are actually using the cards. They are the sign-off. They are your first line of defense to verify and validate all these transactions. So what we ensure to see, this is just a perfect example here, we look at how long did it actually take for the manager to sign off on these items, and what was the information in front of him when he did. So is he aware of these transactions? Did he actually take the time to review it? How long did it take? And did he validate appropriately? Additionally, there are other options where you can see where the people had signed in from, if there's a computer or IP address, because we've noticed that at times there are employees and managers that end up signing in from the same computer, and within seconds everything was approved. That, of course, when you find that, is a huge risk. So once I have the information in front of me, I now want to start to move forward and action the item. I would like to ensure that I continue to investigate this and actually contact the employee for additional information. Investigate further for detailed business reason. As you can see, I have the ability to put free-form comments, and when we're looking here, it states required. What is actually required? These are predefined comments, which is a consistent manner of communicating throughout the entire organization. It helps everybody understand what was the action completed on this item. So was the employee contacted? And for now, we'll state we contacted the employee. It was currently under investigation. I'm looking to contact them, no problem. Do I have any additional attachments or information that I'd like to add to this item, right? So do I want to attach receipts? Do I want to attach emails? So on and so forth. I can do so. Additionally, one of the most important things out of the action as well is what we call indicators. Indicators allow you to start to see the resolution and the outcome of your remediation, meaning what is the potential impact of these exceptions occurring? Am I taking any loss? Am I recovering funds? As well as root cause. Why is this happening? Why root cause is so important is to ensure that you have the ability to identify the reasons that this continues to occur so that you could then take a step back, break down, understand what the reasons are, and react to them appropriately. Because we all know that in the P-card environment, your environment around you continues to change and adapt and evolve. And without understanding its root cause, you can't help your system evolve with it. So currently, we don't have we have a calculated value of $632 for this item, and right now, I think this is a personal purchase. It will continue to be investigated. It could then go through and be changed to a policy violation. It could absolutely be acceptable, so on and so forth. But additionally, when looking at these items throughout the investigation process, it's important to realize if any of these continue to come up. Does policy violations start to come up over and over for certain merchant category codes? Yet it was a standard procedure, or it was accepted. So I misused the card, misuse of the card, yet it was still business approved, which means it's not fraud. You misused it based on the policy in place, but you still violated that policy, so it's still considered a policy violation. Why this is important as well to identify is, again, adapting to your environment. If a particular merchant category code consistently shows up throughout the entire company and it's still approved, then maybe you should start adapting your policy to what's going on out there. So I sent it and I continued to do my investigation. So as you saw, the dashboard notification came up. I closed my email to ensure that we can see everything at this time, so I apologize you won't see the email notification come up. But this is the user's persona point of view. This is the analyst that is currently reviewing all of the items. And another thing as well that's important to understand is I'm aware of what to do and how to do it, but what if I wasn't? What if I was brand new in the system, still trying to figure everything out? One of the great things that we have available to us is, again, customizable resolution guidelines. This is a clear, step-by-step method to have the ability to resolve every single exception that is brought forward. And whether it's a brand new person logging in trying to figure out what to do, or someone who's been there for 8 years and just, you know, they've been in the cycle running through it and tend to forget a few steps. Additionally, these resolution guidelines could have hyperlinks and URLs to connect to any internal system to help pull in any documentation or log into Concur directly as well. So once I've continued to investigate, I have the information. Another persona that currently exists that I want to touch on in the next 10 minutes is gaining a better understanding of a manager's point of view of how the system is actually performing. We have visualizations that help the actual person, whether a manager or an executive, look at, pardon me, look at their purchase card program in a holistic fashion of better understanding how things are going. Pardon me. They could do it by location, business unit, cost center. So what this means is if I am responsible for worldwide P-cards and they are being used around the world in multiple subsidiary locations, or I'm a university and I have a massive amount of departments, I could start to do reports and visually see exactly who is using what, for how much, who, and when. So here we put a quick time frame from January to end of March. You can see the spend trend analysis going on. I notice number of cards and spend. This is usually the standard information that you gain from your purchase card program, from your purchase card application. But when you start to add an additional layer of continuous monitoring, you start to identify where are the potential weaknesses. When did they occur? On the 11th week. Let's break down again. During that week, what happened? I have a spike in spend here. I would start to look here. But guess what? When I remove that, I can see it's not on the 12th that I should actually be looking at. It's the data that occurred on the 10th. Oh yes, of course, on the 10th we brought in that new marketing department. They just received their cards. Looks like they're using it inappropriately. Let's start to look a little deeper. It might just be that additional training is required. But again, you could start to follow up. You could start to see historical usage, historical views. So I now consistently get to see who is potentially misusing the card. When? Through my overall misuse information in these dashboards, I could do my top 10 spenders and abusers, whether it's 5, 10, or 20. Let's take a look at the top 5. Here I have the employees using the cards, my top 5 spenders, and if you notice, once again, when removing this information, I have my exceptions and my repayment. Here's Miss Baker. She's showing up again. She is the superstar. If you noticed, one of the things that we've also been keeping an eye on is repayment. Whether your repayment occurs through payroll or through the card system, we have the ability to import that into the analytics to start to validate, I found these issues, my remediation is automated, I can start to follow up in an automated form, and on top of that, I could also validate if I'm receiving my money. That is a huge advantage. I could start to look at spend through organizational unit. Who are my top spenders, as well as repayments that's occurring, any potential exceptions, what's the average spend occurring throughout, and what are the top merchant category groups being used, meaning hotels, restaurants, wholesale, what's the average spend there, and repayment. And once again, I can start to break down my top 10 abusers. I could start to see trends on who continuously abuses. I don't have to keep a large amount of Excel spreadsheets on, oh yes, Miss Baker, we know her, we always got to watch out for Miss Baker. Well, now we can turn around and say, well, guess what, in a short amount of time, in the past 3 months, Miss Baker has misused her card 6 times for $1,000. Yes, she has repaid us, but indeed, we should start to escalate this and look into it because we need to stop Ms. Baker from continuously misusing the card for personal purchases. We can see again by organizational unit. Look at that. It's the law school and the history of art. We notice any by merchant category groups as well. So I've been able to see the overview of the program, the overall misuse in particular organization units or by employee. And I could even start to drill down further into an employee visualization dashboard. This allows me to break down by employee, start to look at the information in front of me that's available. What is her spending look like? You can see her spend has dropped in these areas compared to the information out there. She uses it a lot for personal use for restaurants. Here, what's the usage, the spend, the exception, the dollar value of the exceptions, and the amount of exceptions occurring. And if you notice, one of the things that we were able to remediate as well is her continuously breaching policies. So in this time frame, we spoke to Ms. Baker that first week. We've been able to identify issues. We were remediated, followed up, escalated, and now you can see that the issues have actually stopped, which is great. It means that what we're doing is working. We have the ability to see additional threshold management as well based on the usage, single transaction limit, monthly card limit, and again, repayment against money lost. This is for everything that's occurring in that time frame. Why? Because I want to be able to say, when I'm continuously monitoring these transactions, we've been able to find $1,000 based on potential issues, but we were also able to recover $1,000, and that's important to show that the system is working. And doing this monitoring can also be done on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. So there isn't a large amount of time now that is being let go throughout before you're starting to find these issues. You have the ability to follow up immediately. So imagine if someone uses the card for electronic purchases or a cash advance, and that's next day they receive an email. Good morning, Ms. Baker. You happen to use your card for cash. Can you please help us understand why? All of a sudden, Ms. Baker takes a step back and goes, "Ooh, these guys are on the ball. They're really watching us. What's going on out there?" So people start to be aware that they are actually being monitored. They want to ensure that you're following the rules appropriately. We're coming close to an end, so I will stop here and I'll take any questions.